good to see you.
Hey, good to see you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So let me pick up this card.
Okay.
Ask us a question. How did you get into the military?
Well, I was 22 years old, and I went to my mailbox and pulled out this thing that says, "Your friends and neighbors have selected you." So I received a draft notice and went to Coral Gables, Florida, to an induction center down there. And there were 300 guys, roughly, there. And out of that 300, they selected 3 of us for the Marine Corps. And they put me in charge of the other 2 guys and told me to get us to Parris Island. So that's where we went. And I was put in the first platoon of draftees in the Marine Corps since the Korean War. And needless to say, our head drill instructor was the ex-heavyweight champion of the Marine Corps, who I didn't like too much. But that's how I got in. I got drafted, I was 22, and off I went.
I didn't know that. So when you're drafted, you weren't drafted into a service, you're drafted into a pool, and then you go to your service.
Well, the induction center, you go there, and then they select you out of there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And all the guys that went in the Army went to Germany, and the 3 of us all went to Vietnam.
Wow. So I joined. So went to college, graduated from there, and then with everything going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, 9/11 happened when I was a freshman in high school, and so really since then I'd always had a desire to serve. And so after I graduated college, that's what I did, joined the Army, and then ended up in Afghanistan, just like so many other people.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah, you too.
That's great. This one says, what was your basic training like in the Army? So
I actually thought basic training was extremely easy. Some people that I saw there didn't think it was easy, but I had wanted to join for so long that I'd kind of been preparing myself and kind of knew what to expect. And so I thought it was easy physically. And then when it's easy physically, the stress of it isn't as much. So, and you hear all the stories from, previous generations of how soft basic training's been, and I'm sure there's things to that too, but I just thought it was easy. It got harder, once we did training with our unit and everything, with all the marches and small unit tactic stuff we were doing.
So when you went to boot camp, did you have an advanced infantry training school after that?
So it was all combined, yeah. So it was 16 weeks. We did basic training for 10 weeks kind of, and then infantry school after that, but it was all meshed together because I went in as an infantry soldier, and so it's all kind of, from day one, it was geared towards that was your school. Yeah.
A very similar thing for me as well. My MOS was 0311, which is Marine Infantry, and we went through Parris Island. Parris Island was, I guess, the roughest part of Parris Island was the sand fleas, because you could bite you and you couldn't move and stuff like that. But after we finished that, I think it was 12 weeks boot camp, and then we went to ITR, which was up at Camp Geiger, which is a base north of there, and we spent, I think it was another 4 to 5 weeks. I'm not sure how long. And then we got our first Liberty, and we went home. I was married at the time. I got married out of high school at the age of 18. So I'd been married 4 years when I got drafted. And then after the after the Liberty was over, then I had to report to Camp Pendleton in California. And that's where we did lock-on training, getting ready to go to Vietnam. And I got out of some of that because, like I told you, they sent us to language school up at Del Mar, and spent 10 weeks up there, and then boarded ship and off we went.
So how quick from when you went to basic training were you in Vietnam?
Well, we trained on the way. We trained in Hawaii on the way over. We were on the way to Okinawa, hit a typhoon, and we were 1 day out of Okinawa, and after the typhoon we were 5 days out of Okinawa, almost sunk. But we got to Okinawa, we trained there, and then we went to the Philippines, and we did some jungle training there quite a bit. So I got drafted in February, and I entered in Vietnam in December of '66 is when I got there. So that length of time, we had quite a bit of training. We're a good battalion. It was made up of partly draftees and partly people that joined, and we meshed together pretty well. And I was one of the older guys. In fact, all the guys I still see still call me the old man. They called me the old man in Vietnam when I was 22. So
the old man.
Yeah, the old man.
Well, cool. What was it like being married while serving?
Good question. out of the 2 years that I was in the Marine Corps, I only saw my wife 30 days. And so because of the training and being gone, it was pretty tough. I had worked for the FBI in the office as a clerk before I got drafted. And so one of the things they did for me is they brought my wife in as a stenographer. So she got a job with the FBI while I was there. So when I got wounded, they sent a telegram to the recruiting office in the basement of the federal building where she worked. And so she got notified about that through a telegram. So that was pretty tough. And but it was, the marriage lasted for a long time, and then we just kind of grew apart. I think I came back with some PTSD and some issues, and we had trouble relating with that, and the marriage broke up.
Right.
But I've since remarried.
Right. So my answer to that question is probably a little unique because we got married 2 months before I was deployed, while I was on Christmas leave. And so I deployed, and then I was injured so early on, 18 days in, that she came to the hospital immediately. And so
I read that.
Yeah.
That's
and so
amazing.
we were together while I was at the hospital for 22 months. And so, so being married was awesome because she was able to be there and take care of me while I was recovering and be my advocate for the doctors and just encourage me. And so I'm just very thankful that we got married when we did, so that we could be together for all that time, and just very, very thankful for her.
Your wife is my hero too.
She's my hero.
Very, very proud of her. It's amazing.
Yep.
What kind of healing needed to happen as a result of your service?
So, injured, lost both my legs and a bunch of other internal injuries. So physically, a lot of healing. Like I said, 22 months at Walter Reed, unable to eat or drink anything for about 7 months after I was injured, just because of all the shrapnel and everything. And so internally needed to heal. My legs needed to heal just so I could put prosthetics on and learn how to walk again. And it was a long process of doing that again, regaining strength and everything. And then just figuring out what life would be like after the service, after being injured, because I went from being a paratrooper in the 82nd in Afghanistan, doing cool stuff, and then next thing I know, I'm in a hospital bed with no legs. And so part of the healing process for sure was trying to figure out what's next, and thankfully had an awesome support system with my wife and family, and then I was a Christian too, and so that was a huge foundation for me of I know God had a plan for all that. Even when I was doubting and wondered what was going on, what the future would look like, all the worries and anxieties that came with, I just fully trusted, even when it didn't seem like it made sense, that things would be okay. And there was lots of little things that happened that, He made that evident, the Lord made that evident, that it was going to be okay.
How about the mental healing?
So I haven't suffered from PTSD. And I don't know why that is. I think because I was injured so early on, I never saw any of my buddies get injured. I was the guy that got injured. And so I think in some respects that's easier, when you're the one that gets injured, because you don't have to see your friend get hurt.
I see what you're saying.
But I just contribute that to the Lord just watching out again, we had so much other stuff going on with just healing. I just was focused on going to physical therapy and trying to do the right thing to make sure I got better, and trying to be a good newlywed husband in a hospital bed. So,
well, that's amazing to me what you went through. My biggest fear while I was in Vietnam was losing limbs. That was my biggest fear, and fortunately I didn't lose any. We were in a major engagement up on the DMZ when I got wounded, and it started on September the 7th, and then on September the 8th, I got artillery shrapnel on the leg, and then 2 days later, I got hit in the chest. And we had probably around 500 Marines up there, 3 rifle companies initially, and we ran into a reinforced regiment of North Vietnamese. And they quickly overwhelmed us, basically, and they got inside our perimeter, and it was bad. But I guess part of my mental healing, I think the physical healing, the doctors took care of that, but the mental healing has been ongoing for years. It really never leaves you. And to have seen the carnage and all that's the part that just and I did have situations where I actually killed people real close up and stuff. And so you never forget that stuff. But I think the best thing that I've ever done for my mental healing is the Marine reunions. The survivors of my battalion, we get together every year. And in fact, I just talked to one of them this morning. We talk all the time. My company commander, who's 88 years old, he and I talk once a week. The brotherhood that's formed from when you go through something like that with your fellow Marines or Army buddies, it just forms a bond, and the reunions are so healing. I mean, I'd recommend any veteran, if you haven't had contact with people you served with in those situations, to get, to make that link. It's a real. My wife and I just sponsored our last reunion over in Nashville, and we had a couple hundred that showed up, and it's just I don't know. Every year it gets better, it seems like. But
that's awesome.
That's really what's helped me on.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's great.
So, what does patriotism mean to you?
So, I think patriotism is a great thing. I think, we do live in an awesome country, like where we can sit here and have this conversation in a church building, go worship every Sunday, go to the mall or sports games without worrying about something crazy happening. And I think it's good to support the country that's given us that's, been blessed by God. I just think it's important. Like I'll teach my kids as they get older, like, hey, this country's, it's got its issues, but it's also the greatest place on earth if you want to live. If you want to live on the, if you're going to live in the world, this is the best place to be.
Exactly.
So I'm proud of this country. I would serve this country again if I could.
I think just having served builds patriotism. When I came back from Vietnam, it was a pretty rough. They were calling you baby killers and things like that, and people didn't realize what the veterans went through at that time. But I'm glad to see that that's changed, and I think in a way, Vietnam veterans had a lot to do with that, because I think they pushed that to the point where now in the airports, when you see somebody in fatigues or utilities, people are clapping, and I love to see that. And if I see a veteran, I always thank them for their service, because the period of time, I don't care how long they were in, that period of time was taken out of their life and set aside. I mean, I was just getting ready to start college when I got my draft notice. So I kind of initially looked at it that I lost 2 years of my life to do what I wanted to do, because I wanted to be an FBI agent. And I knew I had to have that degree to do that. So it postponed it for 2 years. But when I look back on my life, God has just blessed me. I mean, it's just been a blessing to have lived and done He's allowed me to do things that a lot of people dream of doing, and such as yourself. I mean, you've done things that, and no matter what branch of service we're in, we're a brotherhood, and veterans are a brotherhood, and I think that's really neat. I wish we would do more for our veterans, that regardless, because a lot of them come back with mental wounds, and they can't function without getting somebody to help them.
For sure.
Anyway, that's...
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Like, at the way the Vietnam veterans were treated when you guys came home, totally different from how my generation has been treated. Yeah. So, and I think that is because of you guys saying, never again, I'm not going to let that happen again. And so thank you for that.
Well,
yeah.
I'm
welcome home.
Glad to say the same to you.
Yeah. You didn't get that when you came home. So.
No.
Yep. How has your relationship with Christ changed since being in the military?
Oh, goodness. It's grown exponentially. I was a Christian in Vietnam. Although we had the Marine language, you know what I mean? It was, the profanity was horrible. You couldn't even talk without it. So I came back on a hospital ship. So it gave me 30 days to kind of get my language cleaned up. And but I was not the way I am now. I feel like I've grown in the Lord tremendously. I've tried to, one of the things I'm trying to do is contact all my surviving Marines, my buddies, and make sure they know the Lord. And there's just one or two out there that we're still working on, but the majority of the guys have been baptized, have become
That's
Christians.
awesome.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And you would never believe it had you known us back then. It was different.
Yeah. So I was a Christian, became a Christian at a young age. So I was a Christian when I joined the Army and was in Afghanistan. But I kind of wasn't, I was lukewarm, I guess. Like I believed, but I wasn't active in a church at Fort Bragg. Just kind of lukewarm, I guess that's the way I best describe it. But then, before I deployed, my wife and I were praying and it was like, Lord, use this deployment for something, use me for something. And then it's one of those questions that you, when you ask the Lord to do that, you kind of got to be prepared for what's in store. And so I got blown up 18 days in, changed our lives forever. And so that experience and then being at the hospital and the recovery is just like, we saw how faithful and literal miracles happen during that time, and just how faithful the Lord has been with our 3 kids now. And it's just really kind of, that whole experience just totally recentered my mindset on what's important, who the Lord is, how faithful He is. And so, we love this church, going here for 6 years, getting involved in children's ministry and at the men's events, and it's just awesome. Like, we love it here, and it's been just trying to see what the Lord has planned. Like, I still don't know what He's got in store for us, but just kind of following it day by day.
I believe as long as we're alive, He's got a purpose for us. I remember vividly being in a foxhole saying, Lord, if you get me out of this, I'll serve you. I mean, I remember saying that just as clearly as I can. And it took me a few years to get, to keep that promise. But what I've learned is that this life is not about us. It's about Him. And every day we should look to Him. He's not going to be, like I mentioned, He's not going to be caught by surprise. And all the things we see that's going on right now, He's got it under control as part of, He's already told us what's going to happen in His Word. And so we shouldn't be anxious. We shouldn't be worried about it. I just feel like He's got us in the palm of His hand and is going to take care of us.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
You just, like you said, the world's crazy right now. And so just have to be fully reliant on Him and what He's doing, and just trust in His plan. We're
probably living in the most exciting time in the history of the world when you think about it. And we're seeing His plan just unravel right in front of us. And it's just an honor to be able to serve Him and serve our country.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it was great talking with you. Thanks so much. It's good to see you.
Thank you for your service
again.
Appreciate you.